Good morning, I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you, talking to you about you and your business. Hope you had a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to spending this week talking to you. And we're going to tee it off with some time with a gentleman who's been on the program before, and delighted to have him back again as we continue the series that we're working on about Inc. 5,000 companies. And Nate, were you on before? Because I've done this kind of series before on Inc. 5,000.
This
were
is
you
our
on
fifth
before?
time on the Inc. 5000, so I think it was either Fast Tech 50 or HPJ.
Were you
Fast
on
100.
with Charles Alvarez and me? Or was
Maybe.
it just me?
Yes, maybe.
I bet it was Charles Alvarez.
Okay.
Yeah, because he does a lot of focus on the HPJ stuff.
Okay.
More so than I do. So it's
Okay.
probably that. That's cool. Well, we're glad to have you back on, and glad to talk about this, because I think it's really important for businesses to get inspired and really figure out how companies work that get on that kind of track. You know, and Inc. 5000 is decidedly different in a lot of different ways than, say, like your Fortune or Forbes list, because the focus isn't on the size, but on the growth. That's the
Growth,
thing
right.
that differentiates Inc. From a lot of the others out there. And I love that. You know, it's much more in the entrepreneurial mode and that type of thing. So, first of all, before we go with all that, tell us about Entrance, the company Entrance.
So Entrance, the way I would describe it is, you know how it's hard to find the data that you need in the oil and gas business to make decisions? I don't know if you know, but the oil and gas business is really an information business today, right? It's not a matter of where the oil is. We know where it is. It's a matter of, can we get it out economically? And that's really about having all the best information so you can get there first, pay the least for it, and get it out of the ground cheaply. And so the problem is the business has been around for a long time, and it's immature with respect to how it handles the data. So it's got little pockets of data scattered all throughout the company. And so what we do is we help frack the data. So just like you would frack a shale to let the oil flow to where it needs to go, right? We help those people open up the systems and the databases to let that information flow. So helping them as a consulting company get the software and the data and the workflow that they need to make better decisions.
Cool. And how old is your company? Give us a history on that.
Started in December of 2003. So we just had our 10th anniversary party last December. So we're coming up on 11 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you're the co-founder?
I'm the founder.
The founder, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you go to entrancesoftware.com, you can learn about learn a lot about them. It's a very well done site with a lot of great information there. So talk about how long have you been on the Inc. 5000?
This is our fifth year.
Fifth year. That's really hard to maintain, because a lot of companies pop on and then they disappear, pop on and disappear, because it is based on keeping that growth. And so
it's a 3-year growth, so it's not even just 1 year and the next. Yeah. It's about
and if you're off, you're off for several years.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of get back on that kind of curve.
It is. So talk a little bit about the history that led you to getting on, 3 years ago. What took place?
When I started the business, I had one client. They were an oil company. I worked as a contractor for a year. They said, hey, we could hire you. You could come on full time, and we could give you some stock options. And after being through this sort of the .com bust, I had all the stock options I needed, and they had never amounted to anything. And so I said, well, how about if I become a vendor? And they said, oh, okay. Do you have an MSA? And I said, well, I will tomorrow. So I went to Google search and found a contract, and they became my first customer, and that was a little over 10 years ago. They sold a year later, and the stock options I would have gotten would have been worth quite a bit of money, unfortunately. But fortunately, I did much more than those stock options would have been worth in business with that company, and that company is now Statoil today, through a series of acquisitions. And the people that I worked with there, I still work with many of them today, although they're all at different companies. So it was sort of an organic thing that when that company sold, it sort of created a ripple effect. And over the years, we've been able to do a good job for folks, maintain very high kind of customer satisfaction. And that's created a lot of referrals, a lot of people saying, hey, you remember that thing you fixed for us over at such and such? I'm over here now. Can you come and help us out? Mm-hmm. And so only recently have we started really kind of sales and marketing outbound efforts to actually sell. So we've really grown organically. so far. And I would say attribute that to great people.
Yeah.
Surrounding myself with great people.
So that's interesting. Tell me a little bit about the type of companies that you reach, that are clients of yours.
Yeah, so when we think about oil and gas, we think of it in 4 buckets: upstream, midstream, downstream, and then service companies. Companies that make, sell, or supply something into that up, mid, and downstream.
One of those streams.
Yeah, one of those streams, or sometimes multiple of them. And so they're all solving a different piece of the same puzzle. And whether they're buying things and using those to drill oil wells, or selling things to those people, or maintaining a pipeline or a refinery, a petrochemical facility, they're all in that energy value chain. And so with the growth in upstream in the last several years, as we've seen the emergence of the U.S. as a dominant energy producer, really sort of the Saudis of tomorrow, if you look at even the most pessimistic forecasts out into sort of to the 2030 timeline. And this huge amount of supply that's come online has put pressure on the midstream, which pushes pressure on the downstream, because now we have oil that we don't have refining capacity for. And all of this is a big planning problem. So we've got to be able to get materials and people to places that we've never sent them before, and do operations in a way that we've never done them before. We never drilled thousands of wells that are basically the same well back to back before. It's been 1, 2, 3, and this unconventional kind of production is very planning. If you plan it well, it's going to go well, and so it's an information problem, and software is really how we consume information today as people.
Let me ask you. So the vast majority of your clientele, I assume, are mid-market clients.
Mid-market, and into the, nowadays with our size today, we're really serving kind of the smaller end of the enterprise. So Shell, not being a small company, we work for actually Shell Pipeline.
A division,
right? A division of Shell, exactly.
Yeah, and your company's probably mid-market.
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, very
between
cool.
60 and 70 people today.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then your revenue is
right
in that range.
Well, I mean, our revenue for Inc. 5000 last year, I think, was about $7 million, $7.5 million. I think it was sort of
right
for last year's.
So got it. Very cool, very cool. Well, I think it's a great story. Congratulations, and I look forward to hearing more. I think it's awesome that we were able to get you on the program. Any advice for those who would like to try to be on the Inc. 5000?
Growth is about working on the business, not in it. I think if you start as a technician, as someone who is an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or even a hairdresser, and if you're used to doing the work of the business, if you can't get out of that and stop doing the work of the business and think about your job as now the business itself, planning the company, who do I need on the bus? And these aren't new things. You can go read any number of business books. But I think the E-Myth Revisited is a great book that talks about actually a lady that was the best pie baker struggling to become a pie company because no one made pies like her.
Right.
And so she'd always give up and go back to being small.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then no one's running the company.
Yeah.
And so you really have to hire people that are maybe even better than you, so that ego has to kind of back up a little bit and think about, instead of I am a programmer, I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of other books like that. Even Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad may be the most basic place to start.
Sure.
On your way to E-Myth. My favorite of Robert Kiyosaki's books is The Cash Flow Quadrant, which I think really articulates that whole idea. Very good. Thanks so much for being with us. Again, I do want to remind the listener they can learn more about our guests by checking out entrancesoftware.com. Nate Richards, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here can be found over there at usdatareview.com. I am Kevin Price, and this is The Price of Business.